Hey everyone, I'm Ian Douglas, the author of the website techinterview.guide. I do live streams every Sunday and Thursday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern about topics relevant to interview preparation for the tech industry. I occasionally record longer Q&A sessions, and I've started to break those into smaller videos to post. And there'll be information at the end of this video about how to get in contact with me if you have additional questions. Let's get to it. Last question. This one is pretty specific, but I'm going to kind of generalize it a little bit after I kind of present the question. So the question is, what are the likely questions to be asked by interviewers as a mobile app developer and as a web developer? And so I'm going to kind of make this more generic and say, what are the likely questions to be asked for blank developer? Fill in the blank. Are you a web developer? Are you a mobile app developer? Are you a systems developer? Like, what kind of developer are you? I think that there are a range of questions that are going to get asked kind of no matter what. And then there are going to be what we call domain-specific questions that you're going to be asked based on what you do or what that role particularly is. If it's a mobile app job, you're going to get asked questions about mobile application development. If it's web development, you're going to get asked about, HTTP lifecycle and, HTTP status codes and, how the web works and things like that. If it's like system level, you're going to get asked questions about operating systems and permissions and things like that. So it really depends on the type of development role that you're going for. But there are going to be kind of generic questions that they could ask about just technology in general, no matter what. And so, again, it comes down to being prepared for these kinds of things. Now, you can go find lists of questions online. So I'm not going to try to pretend like I've got like the top 1,000 questions, ready to go off the cuff. But there are going to be common questions that you can look up online. There's going to be tons and tons of resources out there. The daily email series that I produce, that I email out every day, I address a handful of these really popular questions. But I don't really go into the technical explanation of them. Instead, what I do is I kind of talk about why I asked that question as an interviewer. Like, why is that question important to me? Or what am I trying to get out of you, by asking that kind of question? What am I trying to find out about you? So when it comes to these kinds of questions, like what are the likely questions I'm going to get asked for a type of development? I would say there are generic kinds of things that you're going to have to know. But it's also going to depend a little bit on the type of development you do. So if you're doing, say, mobile development, you're going to get asked very specific things about the differences between iOS and Android. Do you write your code in Java or Kotlin, or do you write it in iOS or Objective-C or Swift? Like, what language do you use? What frameworks do you use? You're going to get asked very specific sorts of questions about that. But you may also get asked just general, like user interface, user experience kinds of things. Like, what do you think is a good interface? Would you rather swipe left and right or swipe up and down? You could get asked those kinds of questions as well. Again, it depends on whether you're doing like mobile UI development or if you're doing like kind of the, what we would call kind of middleware, where it's somewhere between the user interaction and actually sending out to like some backend service. There's going to be like some code in between. Are you that developer? If you're more on the system side of it, they're going to ask questions about, well, what is REST? What's a RESTful API? What are some other choices of API development that are not REST? Do you know about those, like gRPC? Are you aware of those kinds of things? Do you only use JSON data payloads? Have you ever used protocol buffers? Like, those are going to be more of the low-level kinds of things. For very front-facing, customer-facing kinds of interfaces, you could get asked things about accessibility and color schemes and color blindness and things like that. So the kinds of questions you're going to get asked are going to be specific to the type of role. But then they're also going to be asking kind of these generic questions about, why do you want this job here at this company? Why should I hire you? Sorts of questions. But they're also going to want to ask, like, pretty much all of those interviews, they're going to ask like about your aspirations. Like, what kind of developer do you want to be? Like, this is the role we want to try to hire for, but are you really headed in the same direction, or do you want to kind of veer off and do something else after a while? Like, do you want to do this job for 2 years and then get into management? Do you want to do this job for a couple of years and then, work on a different part of the stack? Like, maybe you work on that middleware and you want to gravitate more towards systems, or maybe you're on systems and you want to move all the way up to the front end and be more sort of full stack. Those kinds of questions are going to get asked no matter what kind of developer you are. And so I think that there are generic questions that you could go look up, but then there are also going to be very domain specific kinds of questions. So hopefully that'll give a couple of ideas there. The kinds of questions that you're going to face are also going to depend on your seniority level. If you're brand new in the industry, you're not going to get asked super hard questions or super detailed, like intricate kinds of questions, like the best way to do caching. They may ask, like, have you ever done caching? If you're entry level, and if you're more senior level, they're like, tell me about a time that you've done some caching. What were some trade-offs that you made? What are some different ways that you can cache data? What are the trade-offs that we make around processing time versus memory storage and things like that? That's going to tip more into like senior level territory. So again, those kinds of things will depend a lot on the role and your seniority level as well as the company themselves. And as we mentioned, like really early in the stream, some of the questions will also depend a little bit on the interviewer themselves. If they come from that CS background, they're more likely to ask more CS-based questions. It's not guaranteed, but I would still try to be prepared for some, just in case. Hey, thanks for watching. I love helping people out with interview prep, and I hope this video helped you in some way. If you found this Q&A useful, please consider subscribing. You can follow me on Twitch as well for the live stream twice a week. Check out techinterview.guide/streaming for more information. I also have a daily email series that you can subscribe to on the website. There are never any ads, and when you finish the series, I scrub your information out of my database permanently. Finally, if you have a question that you'd like answered on the stream, you can find my contact info on techinterview.guide. I prefer LinkedIn or email. If you leave your question in a YouTube comment, it might take me longer to find it, but I'll see you next time.